back. We talked about a few things before we got on this call, and I think one of the things we want to talk about was Dave's been studying the law of polarity. So introduce us to
Yeah.
what the law is, what it means, and then how we can, we'll get into how we can use it on our day-to-day life.
Basically, there's these concepts, right? We've talked a lot about how everything's energy. We've talked a lot about, vibration and the quantum field. We've talked about that, right? And I would assume that most people hearing this are familiar with some of these things. I hope so. If not, go look them up and you'll be up to speed pretty quick, right? But the deal is that there are laws that govern these things. Like just like there is physical laws, there are also universal laws. And these laws are governing basically the way in which things work in the spiritual, energetic realm, at the very least. So one of them is the law of polarity, which is basically like everything has an opposite. I thought this was extremely interesting because I was learning about this, and it was talking about the ability to transmute emotion. And we already know this. We already know about like changing your state. I think that's the most elemental way to talk about it, changing your state, increasing your vibration and vibrating at a higher level emotion than these lower crappy emotions that oftentimes we are vibrating. But what I realized was with the law of polarity and being able to be extremely aware, you need to know what emotion you're feeling and be very clear on that, because you cannot change a vibration into anything but its opposite on that spectrum with the law of polarity. So for instance, if I'm feeling sad, I can't translate sadness into courage, because you don't need it right now, and two, that doesn't make any sense, right? But I can translate sadness into happiness, because the opposite of happiness is sadness. So if I know where I'm at, there's this spectrum that you can move along, and you can get from there to here. But it takes a level of awareness, and this can go really deep. But I think we've all experienced this, and what it's brought to me is just a deeper level of awareness of being able to be very intentional about what I'm feeling and what I want to change it into. Because we're the creators of our lives, and we create by creating here first. Thoughts generate emotions, emotions generate behavior.
Yeah, there was a lot there. I agree with you that thoughts are how you create, right? There's nothing, everything is neutral with the exception of thought. Your thought is not neutral, right? You can literally change universes, worlds with your thoughts. So this is why Dave and I are usually preaching meditation, or practicing meditation, better said. And the reason we practice meditation is that you come aware of what you feel, because if you're not aware of what you're feeling and you're not going to sit down with that feeling, then it's really hard to transmute that. So in terms of this law of polarity, so imagine a timeline is kind of the way I looked at it. Like, hey, on one end you've got this one, and on the other side you have its opposite. So almost like a horizontal plane. And this horizontal plane, I believe, when Dave said, I kind of wrote some notes, that's kind of where this law of polarity exists. I believe there's a spiritual plane and there's a human plane, right? Ultimately, everything flows from the spiritual plane to the human plane. However, one key exception: if you live in the human plane, then you don't see a spiritual plane, right? You don't see a vertical plane if you live in the human plane, right? You've got to,
Yeah.
this is why meditation is so important, because you go back to being a creator. Well, where do you create? You create in the vertical plane, right? You create in
You create in the
no
mind first.
space,
Yeah.
right? You create in no space and no, right? You create with thought, but you actually go into the quantum, or you go into the infinite intelligence, or the right, the universe, and that's where you go create, right? In stillness, you create, right? So there's two different worlds going on. Really, it's one world, but if you're not aware of the other world, perception is reality, right? If you live in the human world and that's what all you can see, and everything you can see is what you can see, touch, taste, and smell, then you're just kind of like stuck in the suffering state, right? You're really not transmuting anything. So this is assuming you want to sit there and do the work of the spiritual work. You want to live the spiritual plane, and you're realizing that the spiritual plane would then translate into the physical plane. Dave, what are your thoughts on what I said?
I completely agree. And it's interesting because when you're talking about the physical plane, we're plugged into the physical plane through our five senses, right? our eyes, our sight, our hearing, our taste, our smell, and our touch. But in the spiritual plane, we're plugged in with different things. They're different senses. It's like you have intuition, you have thought, you have um, visualization, you have imagination, and these are all different, um, almost like spiritual senses that plug you into that plane. But we're so deceived by this physical reality that we're in that we miss most of those other things going on, even though they're happening all the time.
Yeah, just because you
And
can't
it's
see
funny
it doesn't mean it's not happening.
exactly, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. And you can prove that it's happening all the time because we all know that we're thinking, but what is it that we're thinking about? Oftentimes, I've heard it said that you can't think about two things at once, but that's not true. You can't think about two things at once with your conscious mind, but your subconscious mind is a record of everything that's ever happened. And it's constantly thinking about all sorts of different things. We've all had a situation where maybe you're in a difficult place in a relationship and you want to go talk to someone and you are telling yourself a story, but that is your imagination and your thoughts going on behind the scenes, picking up something that it's feeding into your brain that now you're going to act out in physical plane, even though oftentimes it's not even true. And this is going on all the time.
I hate to sound like a broken record, but this is why meditation helps you see this. Meditation is just a tool to become aware, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy or complicated. But Dave, how many times do you meditate a day? And even a small 1 minute. Sometimes when when I notice I'm off, just to get back on track. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. What are your practices there for becoming aware? Because without awareness, the law doesn't exist.
I think it's funny that you said that because I know we were talking about giving people more practical tools. So I'd like to know what your practice is as well. So mine every single day, I get up very early. Every day I'm up at I actually moved it back this month. I wake up at 4:15 every day. That is my wake up time. It does not matter if it's the weekend or the week. A lot of people, their first question is, oh, well, what time do you go to bed? But we're not talking about what time I go to bed. Bedtimes change, wake up times stay the same no matter what. So I wake up and my first move is I go and I need to get into that because I don't even really call it meditation, although it is, and I use dispense as meditation most of the time. I call it programming because I'm reprogramming myself. And this is a lifelong thing because I've said this before, you're either being programmed by default or by design, be either automatically or by intention. So I choose intention. So I get up and I go to the couch and I sleep with my sleep mask on. Normally, I think this habit actually started because I would meditate before bed as well. But so I got my sleep mask right there, put it down, put on my thing, and then I just go to work and I get into the mind. And it's funny because I'm listening to what he's saying, but more than anything, I'm talking to myself. I'm not really listening during that time. I'm listening, but I'm talking to myself as well because I'm trying to be very intentional about what I am putting in my mind. I have 5 non-negotiables that I live by in my life. And those non-negotiables I am constantly reinforcing because I want them to be so strong in me that there is absolutely nothing that will ever shake those non-negotiables in my life. So that's what I'm often doing. I'm also listening to the meditation, and I normally will do like a short one during the week because I have a pretty intense gym regimen, and I do that shortly after getting out of meditation and my morning programming. But I'll do that, and then I'll take a second after I'm done, and I'll just reflect. I'll be like, okay, is there any thoughts? Is there any downloads that I feel like I got out of this? Like I feel like I'm connecting with the creator in that time as well. So it's a very, very, very special time for me. It's one of my favorite times. And I can tell you there is a lot of time when I do not feel like sitting up, but I always sit up. Unless I'm doing a laying down meditation, which there are some of them, and every now and then I give myself that treat. But for the most part, I am sitting up, especially when I don't want to, because that's when you're leaning in. Right? When you make yourself uncomfortable, that's when the biggest change happens. So that is my morning routine. And then my goal during the day is I basically set the tone for who I want to be. And you and I talked about this a lot, right? It's about being, it's not about doing or about what you want or what you want to have. It's being. So I'm very intent on who I'm being through the day. And my goal is to be that same person the entire day and not come out of, I don't know, go back into the virtual reality headset or whatever, right? I want to be very intentional about who I am through the entire day. So yeah, there might be times when that breaks, and there will be times when I'll take a second to change things. But oftentimes I'll use other tools during the day. I'll increase my vibration by doing some movement or something like that if I get out of state. Every now and then I'll do like a midday meditation. Sometimes I'll do a breathing exercise. And then, but before I go to bed, I do the same thing. I do a evening meditation, and that's normally longer. I'll do like a 30-minute one, sometimes an hour long one before I go to bed. And that is sometimes I'll do it sitting up in my bed. From time to time, I'll do a laying down one in my bed. And then sometimes if I'm really tired, I'll not do it in my bed. I'll go sit on the chair close to my bed because I don't want to fall asleep. I do fall asleep sometimes in meditation, but the goal is not to do that, right?
That's awesome. No,
That's mine. What about you? What about you? How does yours look like?
they're very similar. The two most important meditations I do are in the morning and at night, and those rarely ever get missed. I mean, I don't remember when I missed the early one, and then at night I don't remember when I missed the last one. Maybe, I don't know, a month ago, one day. But it
It's
feels,
like a ritual now, right?
yeah, the thing, Dave was saying that it feels so good after, even though initially it might not feel great if you're just kind of starting out on your journey in the meditation. It might not feel as comfortable, but eventually it'll get to a space where you cannot not do it. Like I cannot not do it. Like I just know the self that doesn't do that, and it doesn't feel good. I like the self. I like myself a lot better when I do it. So,
Yeah.
and then for me, so right in the morning, I'll get up, I'll do some things around the house real quick or whatever, and then I'll go. I've got a certain spot where I sit outside, and I'll sit down, I'll meditate in the same spot I use at night to meditate. So normally for me, it's quiet. I'll just kind of get there quiet, no headphones, no nothing, and I'll just kind of sit there and really just open up, slow down any thoughts that come up, and I'm just attuning. I'm attuning to the universe. I'm attuning to the divine within, just affirming that, just knowing who I really am, knowing the truth of myself, remembering the truth of who you really are. That's what I go to meditation for at this point in my practice, right? It didn't always start like that, right? When it first started, it was noisy, it was loud in there. Now I feel like I connect with the divine in me and the divine pretty much every meditation. There's a strong connection and a release there and a download. So it's kind of a magical time. It really is. I'm really proud of myself with where I have come in that level of consciousness and raising vibration, and what it does for me after. Like it helps me integrate everything I want to be, and it reminds me of who I really am. So that's what it does for me. And I'm more going to just commune with that divine source of the inside, with that infinite intelligence that it already knows. It already knows what you want. It knows how to heal. Like the human doesn't know. The guy with the senses, the crazy me, and all of us, with the senses and the world and the eye, and you can see
We
that
have no
guy.
idea.
Yeah, that guy's clueless. Don't listen to that guy. I mean, that guy, right? But the divine self within you, oh man, all the answers are already inside. This idea of the kingdom of heaven is inside. It's really true. Everything's been
Yeah.
everything's been put inside you. All of it. It's completely there. Even the things you think you want, the way of fulfillment's included in this program. But if you're operating in
Yeah.
the human realm and you're separate from that, right? There's an idea that you're separate from that, then you've got to go seek fulfillment on the external, and that never works. I mean, I'm there's one thing I'm certain, and Dave, you can chime in on this, please. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Is seeking for things in the external to fill the needs of the soul, that'll never work, guys.
You know what is exciting too? Like, I'm happy we learned this now, dude, because I'm a very driven guy and I still have huge aspirations for my life and where I want to go. I would rather have learned it as like, how do I describe this? They say there's like a difference between like, people that have a net worth of like 5 to 25 million dollars versus someone like after that. Now you're like wealthy, right? And I'm happy that I learned that in this stage. I'm on the lower end of that spectrum, but I'm happy that I learned that now instead of going and chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing more things, thinking that that was going to bring me fulfillment. Because it's going to be so much more satisfying achieving those things, knowing that it's not going to fulfill me. is going to be so much more satisfying because it's almost like all you're doing now is proving to yourself who you are rather than being like, oh, I already knew that I could accomplish that, rather than being, oh, I accomplished that, so I'm this. It's a very, very different way. And the feeling and the joy that you're going to get out of that is so much better. So like, it's funny because like, you think of people that have just extraordinary wealth and possessions and all that. And I can't imagine having gone all that way and still not having real life, you know?
Well, Dave, I mean, we know, one of the things that's great about, the circles we hang out in, some of the guys you introduced me to, and some of the guys I hang out with is they've achieved those levels of money or of, that level of money. Because I think money and wealth are two different things. I think wealth, like being wealthy is a state of being, and having money
Yeah.
something else. Like, right. And again, I'm not saying they're not incongruent. I'm just saying they're two different things. I know a lot of guys that have a lot of money, but they're not wealthy. Like in their being, they're not wealthy. They might have a lot of money. It's a different. Does that make sense, Dave?
Yeah. Well, I think it's also tied into the fact that because you're validating yourself through those achievements and those accomplishments. You always are thinking, if those achievements or those accomplishments stop, then I'm not validated.
Right. It's almost like a
And
worthiness thing, Dave.
that is the big, yeah, it
Yeah.
really is. It really is. You feel unworthy because you haven't built that worthiness in yourself. But I've said this, right? And we both talked about this. The most important credibility you can have is with you.
Yeah.
It really is. And you build your credibility to yourself by keeping your word to yourself. And most people, I think we talked about this on the very first time, right? We have these leaks. We get these leaks of energy where we're just like doing things we know we shouldn't, or speak. And it can be so many different things, man. But it's just, yeah, you want to get yourself to a place where that fulfillment is coming from within. Because if you're not, it's going to come to a head at some point,
Yeah.
and it could end really bad. Like, well, hopefully people wake up before this. You know what's funny? I was actually talking to someone about this before, and I'm interested to get your take on this. And this is probably going to change the dynamic of this conversation a bit, but it's going to be interesting because I'm in tech recruiting, and the whole buzz right now is AI. And AI, I believe, is going to change everything. And one of the things that is really going to change is, okay, a lot of people are going to lose their job. At the very least, it's going to give us a lot more free time, a lot more free time, because we'll have this leverage. And some people will leverage it. Like you look at somebody that's really, really, really productive is going to be like, hey, I work X amount of hours a day and I'm really focused and I find fulfillment in this. Remember, we were talking about this the other day. Like, you have to love the process, but that person will just do 8 times the amount of work, or like 80 times the amount of work, right? They'll get 10x on their thing. But another person will be like, hey, now I can work 30 minutes a day and still look like I'm doing the same amount. What I think is going to be a real scary thing is, when was the last time that all of a sudden we had a lot of extra time on our hands in recent history? In
Cool.
2020, right? Yeah, when COVID hit. And what happened to most people with that extra time?
I agree with you. It's kind of as you're talking, I'm thinking which word are they listening to? So when they're listening to the word, which word are they listening? Are they listening to the word of the ego or the word of the spirit within them?
Yeah.
Which word are you being congruent with? Because sometimes people are listening to the word, but they're listening to the wrong voice. And not wrong or right, but you know what I mean? They're listening to the lower voice, to the small little voice that you don't want to listen to necessarily. But if you're
Yeah.
following the word of your true self, man, that's a different world. And if people take this time now that AI is going to give them, and they invest in truly getting to know that deeper, still inner quiet voice, if they get to know that voice, dude, world changing. Forget AI.
It's going to be world changing.
Yeah,
It's going to be world changing. But you saw where I was going with that. Most people over COVID did not do that, right?
no,
There's higher instances of drug abuse, higher instances of alcohol abuse, higher instances of depression, anxiety, sitting around, getting fat, watching TV, like just doing nothing.
yeah, divorce rates went through the roof because people didn't know how to deal with each other.
Yeah, man. And it's like, so that is actually my biggest concern about this. people are going to self-implode. The fact of the matter is, like, there has never been a time in history where it's more important to be working on you and dealing with a lot of this stuff. Because if you can, when do most people get in trouble anyway, right? They get in trouble when they have that free time. So all of a sudden, we're just going to have all this free time, and we're going to have added stress because a lot of people, it's not like a lot of jobs are going to disappear, but it's not like our responsibilities disappear. It's not like the bills are going to disappear, right? You're still going to have these responsibilities. You're going to have more free time, added stress, and people are just going to implode. So I almost, like, when I realized this yesterday, I was just like, man, people, come on, like, this is the time. Now is the time. This is not time to be thinking, oh, I'll put this off. I'll figure this out later. I'll become a better version of myself in the future. There will be a day I'll get to it. Oh, personal development is not for me right now. It's like, yo, wake up, because you are going to get smacked by reality so hard if you don't realize where we're headed right now.
I'll take the opposite on this one. In COVID, we got like shot one, and yeah, there was a lot of that. But dude, there was a lot of spiritual growth through COVID. A lot of the guys I talked to, COVID was really a
Oh,
spiritual
there
awakening.
was.
Yeah, so maybe this
Yeah.
is like a round two of like, hey, you didn't catch it the first time. Well, now the universe, source, infinite intelligence, this universal intelligence is giving you a second shot, like a second shot to get it. And if you
I
don't,
just want people to get that.
yeah. And
Yeah.
if you don't get it, you're going to get a lot of pain, because the human usually learns by suffering. And this is all of us included. Like, we've all suffered, which then causes you to, go on the spiritual path, right? To really find that inner peace, right? So, man, this could really push a lot of people. And I think it will. Dave, look at some of these, like the Dispenza events. Dude, they sell out in less than a minute. In less than a minute, 8 minutes, it's sold out, gone. So there's a lot of guys that we're connecting with, Dave, through this kind of content that 5 years ago would not look at this.
No, I agree with you on that front. I agree. And I am hopeful of a lot of people. But I'm just saying, like, the average person's not doing that, right? And that's why I'm just like, guys, wake up. Like, you have to. You got to become one of these people, because if not, you're going to get eaten alive. Like, yeah, I love the way you put it. This is a second chance. You wasted away the 18 months you got in COVID, where you could have built yourself into a beast, and you missed it. And here's another chance. Don't miss the boat twice. It's not very often that lightning strikes twice and you have a chance to catch it in a bottle. Take that opportunity. Yeah. But I would start preparing now. Don't wait for it to get there. That's the other thing, right? Because it will creep up on people. They're not going to understand. It's going to happen so fast. And you do not want to, like, wait and find out too late. It's like Warren Buffett says, right? When the tide goes out, everybody knows who's been swimming naked, right? So, like, you don't want to be that guy.
I mean, you're going through a lot of change, and so am I, and the universe is going through a lot of change too, and it's looking to up level, right? The reason all this stuff is happening is the universe, from a higher level perspective, it's looking to evolve to a higher space, and those that don't evolve are either going to get wiped off, or they're really going to suffer. Like, it's increasing the intensity so that you get the lesson, so that you start a meditation practice, so that you start a mindfulness practice, so that you actually wake up. Like, the universe is looking to wake you up.
Yeah. And you know what's so funny, man? It's weird, because we don't normally talk about technology on these things, but it's getting to a point that you almost have to, because we're poised for such a crazy shift. I was talking to someone the other day too. It's like, the other big thing that's coming up in parallel with AI right now is quantum computing. And that is like 1,000,000,000 times the computing power that we have. Like, that is the stuff that, we talk about, like, interplanetary travel. That's pretty hard to do when you're using rockets. You're limited by speed. And they know that there's ways to go faster. We just haven't figured out the physics equations for them yet. But when you have a computer that is 1,000,000,000 times more powerful than what we have now, you pair that with AI, we're going to be able to solve so many of the problems in the world. Diseases are going to get fixed. Longevity is going to get fixed. Poverty could probably get fixed. Like, there's all these huge universal issues, and that's going to propel us into what you could almost call the space age. And that is the next evolution of us as a species. And it's going to happen way faster than we think. way faster than we think. Like, I don't even talk to my son anymore about what do you want to be when you grow up, because I don't think most of the things that he wants to be now are going to exist when he grows
I
up. I think
agree.
it's going to be very different.
One of the things when you kind of go back, one of the things I do in my meditation too lately, sometimes like so throughout the day, if I fall off track or whatever, something happens, I'll just kind of do some breath
Yeah.
work. But in the meantime, kind of like during the day, what I find during the day, what I do is I integrate. So a lot of these times, like I'll read something spiritual or I'll do a meditation or something will hit me, right? Something will trigger me, whatever happens. But when I go lay down, I kind of like visualize and feel my whole self, my true self getting an upgrade. It's almost like, because like we're all raising constant vibration, but I also feel myself like getting an upgrade. Like, guys, Dave's son, my girls, they are like the new version of the iPhone. They have all the gizmos and all the updates. Like they're of higher these new beings that are coming in, they're of higher consciousness and higher vibration. So sure, they're not as dense as Dave and I. They can't take all the punches Dave and I took. At the same time, so they're a little bit softer, but that also makes them much more conscious, much more open. So this new generation is
Yeah.
really able to deal with this kind of technology, whereas the older generation, unless they're actually being conscious and upgrading themselves by raising their vibration, raising their consciousness, they're really going to suffer.
Yeah, they are. They are. So I think the biggest takeaway for people right now is like, now is the time. How much longer? And people, here's the thing too, Ray, like people know, they felt this call before. We all know that there's greatness in us somewhere. We know it. Maybe you've dulled the voice to the point that you can barely hear them and it's a very, very quiet whisper, but you know it. You know it. Like, now is the time. Stop putting it off. Step into that river of change. We use that analogy a lot, you and I, when we've had these conversations, the river of change. And I actually got this quote, and this is my own quote, but this came to me the other day, actually after morning meditation. When you step into the river of change, the water will be turbulent. You can either fight the current or go along for the ride, right? There's going to be all sorts of stuff that's going to, like you will find some of your worst fears might come true, right? Because you've been dulling things, you've been avoiding things, and some of
Suppressing.
the things that you've been, compressing things, and some of the things that you have feared, like, hey, maybe this relationship's not right for me, and you've just been pushing that down, pushing that down, pushing it down, but the truth is maybe it's not. And maybe when you step into the river of change and you really embrace this and go after it, maybe you'll lose it. But do you want to keep trying to hold on to something that's not serving you, or are you ready to grab something that's actually going to change your life and give you everything that you really truly want? That's the question.
I think on
So
that
yeah,
point, Dave, it's a matter of just letting go. Sometimes the
yeah,
human holds on to all these things, and it's a matter of like just surrendering, just let go. One tip that I would give people that helped me tremendously, kind of when I was early on the path, and even now sometimes, stop listening to shit. Stop putting more. So like if you go to the gym, dude, don't listen to shit. Like be with yourself. Like these things will come up naturally the more you stop putting things in. So like less content, even spiritual content, be mindful. But most of the guys we're talking to probably just listen to a lot more like business news or like this podcast on that. Dude, there's nothing inside you that you don't already know. Less stuff,
yeah,
less inputs, and then it'll automatically create more ways for things to come up and out. So like that'll
yeah.
automatically raise your vibration. Dave, what are your thoughts on that? I see like all these guys in the gym 24/7. They have these ear things on. I'm like, dude, you're playing basketball. Why would you have ear headphones on while you're playing basketball?
Yeah, you like it's funny. So I typically listen to something when I'm in the gym, but I don't listen to music. I listen to something positive that's like feeding my soul, right? Like that's my goal when I'm in the gym. But I know people like they're there and they want to escape. If you can't really escape when you're just listening to someone talk to you at the gym. You can escape when you're listening to music because you're gonna like hear your favorite song and stuff like that. But sometimes you just need to face it. Yeah, there's something about like just you and the iron, right? And just like feeling the battle that you're having, and then you come out of there feeling amazing. But I would say yes, limit your consumption of stuff for two reasons. One, because most of what we put in us is BS, Two, everything is programming you, and you want to be very conscious of what you put in your brain, very conscious. And number three, we already have a application problem and an overload of information problem. So do you really need more information on anything? Like you probably don't. You already know a lot of the answers. So I would just tell people like stop feeding yourself any information
Yep.
and start applying some of the stuff you know that you need to already be doing. And then the other one is with the news. It's funny because you can get so trapped into the news, and the news is so polarizing, right? It's just you know you can get into the news is basically politics now, right? Like that's basically it. The news has become politics. There used to be a day and age where it was like fireman rescues cat from a tree, and that was the news, and it was feel good stuff. That does not exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's all like, oh, we're putting charges against Trump and this and that and all this, and it's like it's so not helpful to your state of mind. And here's the thing: the first excuse people have when I would tell them, be like, stop watching the news or stop listening to the news or stop going to those websites, news websites. They're going to be like, oh, well, isn't it important to know what's going on? But the truth is, if it's that important, you will find out.
Yep. Yep.
Case in point, I took like a fast from the news. Remember when that building collapsed in Miami?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was a big thing. I had no idea because I didn't watch the news. But someone called me that morning. It's like, hey, Dave, you okay? I heard a building collapsed in Miami. Case in point, if it's that important, you will find out about it.
Yeah,
Somebody
not
will
just
tell you about it.
content too, but even social media, like just take some time off to be with yourself, to learn how to trust yourself. We're so used to like inundating and getting info from the outside. All the answers are inside. So just if you could cut that down by 50%, like just all the external noise, all that stimulation, and just learn to listen to that true inner voice. I'm trying to give you
Yeah.
one tip to like just stop all the extra stuff.
Yeah. And it's funny because with this social media, the other thing is like it's almost necessary now with like, if you're building a personal brand or if you're working on a business, you want to be out there on social media, you have to get that attention. We were talking before I think we started this about the
Mm-hmm.
currency of attention.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important, but then you need to be very, very intentional about when you get on that device.
Yes.
Get on there, and your goal should be, okay, I'm going to engage with my followers a little bit, but I'm not going to sit and get lost in this loop of scrolling, because when you do that, what's that going to do? It's going to create feelings of comparison where you're comparing yourself and your life to someone else's highlight reel there. And
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, your life's probably better than theirs. You're just seeing their highlight. That's not going to be helpful for you. Get on there, be intentional. Hey, I'm going to go, I want to engage with a couple of people to keep whatever I'm working on going. Go on there, like a couple of people that you care about. And then also stop following people that piss you off or don't feed you anything good.
They lower
Like
your vibration, dude.
if
Cut those people out.
yeah, get that off. It's funny, man, because I put out a coaching program that's out right now. I'm doing ads and I get just some nasty comments on the ad, nasty comments, right? But I don't ever go and read them. I just every now and then I see them and I get so tempted to engage. It just wants you to draw you in. I want to be like,
Mm-hmm.
you have no freaking idea, right? But like the best thing you can ever do for those people is just ignore them. Just ignore them. You don't need to engage them. There's no point.
Yeah.
It's not going to help
You'll
you
never
anymore.
win. You just by giving them your attention, done. It's over. You lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And for all you know, it could just be a bot, right? Like who knows, right? So, but biggest takeaway for today, what do you think?
I think two. One, if you don't have meditation practice in the morning and night, start it. Even for a minute or two, just be quiet for a few minutes, morning and night. Commit to that. You can do a minute. Everyone can do a minute. A minute, sit there, no noise, no nothing. Just sit there with your thoughts, right? Just sit there. And the second thing is cut out all the noise. 50% of the noise, cut it out. Whether it's you going on content somewhere or you listening to something, drive time, just drive quietly. I know it's uncomfortable. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable for me to do it when I first started, but you will start to learn to listen to yourself, and then you will start to trust your true self. Right now, you're trusting the other self, or worse yet, if you're not even trusting the ego, you're trusting someone from the outside that's not even your true self. Like, it's just crazy. So like, create space there so you can remember to trust your true self.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I would echo that, man. Get some sort of practice in the morning. I think the first 15 minutes of your day, and if I was to tell people, I actually think the morning is more important than the night. Like if you're going to start one, sure, I hope that you get to the level that Ray and I are at where we're doing, before we go to bed and at night, and in the morning, we're setting the tone. But if you're just to pick one, the morning is probably more important
Absolutely.
in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know about you, man, but most people don't wake up skipping out of the bed, super happy. We tend to think about our problems first, and you need to take control of that because that's going to set the tone for your day. If you wake up and all you do is start thinking about your problem, you're going to have problems throughout your day. But if you take control of that, you realize, okay, I'm thinking about my problems. I want to think about this. This is who I am. You feed your identity, you're going to start from a place of strength rather than a place of weakness. And you can add on the evening thing in the future,
Yep.
but start with a habit of this because it might be hard at first. But if there's anything that we have learned and know for sure, it's that when you do something consistently, repetitively over time, it becomes very easy. It is not hard for me to meditate in the morning anymore at all.
No.
It was at first. Now it's not. I can't imagine not doing
Yeah.
it.
Now it's hard not to do it.
It would be very hard not to do it.
Yeah.
So.
And one of the things I do at night that I didn't mention that might be helpful at night, sometimes if I'm not able to meditate for a longer time, what I'll just say to myself, I'll sit there for a minute and say, I forgive this day, I release this day, it's been perfect and it's done. And ultimately what you want at night when you go to bed is release that day, let that go. Because what happens is people replay that in their mind, or the subconscious replays that. So you never really get deep rest. In the morning, you wake up thinking about the problems that you went to bed at night thinking about. So you, again, remember, you're always creating with your thoughts. Just because you're asleep doesn't mean you're not creating.
100%. Couldn't agree more, man.